Hello everyone, welcome to another virtual book club. Today we will continue reading The Halloween Tree with chapters 12, 13, and 14. So grab your favorite book time drink and comfy clothes and let's get started. Chapter 12. Now the boys who landed like a downpour of bright autumn trash were in this order. Tom Skeleton, dressed up in his delicious bones. Henry Hank, more or less a witch. Ralph Bengstrom, unraveled mummy becoming more unbandaged by the minute. A ghost named George Smith. JJ, no other name needed, a very fine ape-man. Wally Babb, who said he was a gargoyle, but everyone said he looked more like Quasimodo. Fred Fryer, what else but a beggar fresh out of a ditch? And last and not least, Hackles. Nibley, who had run up a costume at the last moment by simply clapping on a white scare mask and grabbing his grandpa's harvest scythe off the garage wall. All the boys being safely landed on the English earth, their billion autumn leaves fell off and blew away. They stood in the midst of a vast field of wheat. "Here, Master Nibley, I brought your scythe. Take it. Grab! Now lie low," warned Montrud. The druid god of the dead, Sam Hain. Fall! They fell, for a huge scythe came skimming down out of the sky. With its great razor edge it cut the wind. With its whistling side it sliced clouds. It beheaded trees. It razored along the cheek of the hill. It made a clean shave of wheat. In the air a whole blizzard of wheat fell. And with every whisk, every cut, every scythe, the sky was aswarm with cries and shrieks and screams. The scythe hissed up. The boys cowered. "Huh!" grunted a large voice. "Mr. Montrud, is that you?" cried Tom. For towering 40 feet above them in the sky, an immense scythe in his hands, was the cowled figure, its face in midnight fogs. The blade swung down, hiss. "Mr. Montrud, let us be!" "Shut up!" Someone knocked Tom's elbow. Mr. Montrud lay on the earth beside him. "That's not me. That's Sam Hain," cried the voice in the fog. "God of the dead, I harvest thus and sow. Swoosh! And all those who died this year are here, and for their sins this night are turned to beasts. Swoom!" "Please," whimpered Ralph the mummy. The scythe zippered Hackles Nibley's spine, ripping his costume in a long tear, knocking his own small scythe free of his hands. Beasts! And the harvest wheat flailed up, spun round on the wind, shrieking its souls, all those who had died in the past 12 months, rained to earth. All falling, touching the heads of wheat, were turned to asses, chickens, snakes, which scurried, cackled, brayed, were turned to dogs and cats and cows that barked, cried, bawled. But all were miniature. All were tiny, small, no bigger than worms, no bigger than toes, no bigger than the sliced-off tip of a nose. By the hundreds and thousands the wheat had snowed up in scatters and fell down as spiders which could not shout or beg or weep for mercy, but which, soundless, raced over the grass, poured over the boys. 100 centipedes tiptoed on Ralph's spine. 200 leeches clung to Hackles Nibley's scythe until, with a nightmare gasp, he raved and shook them off. Everywhere fell black widows and tiny boa constrictors. "For your sins, take that and this," bellowed the voice in the whistling sky. The scythe flashed, the wind, cut, fell in bright thunders. The wheat churned and gave up 1,000,000 heads. Heads fell, sinners hit the rocks, and hitting, were turned into frogs and toads and multitudes of scaly warts with legs, and jellyfish which stank in the light. "I'll be good," prayed Tom Skeleton. "Let me live," added Henry Hank. All of this said very loudly, for the scythe was making a dreadful roar. It was like an ocean wave falling down out of the sky, cleaning a bench and running away up to cut more clouds. Even the clouds seemed to be whispering out swift and more fervent prayers for their own fates. "Not me, not me." For all the evil you ever did, said Samhain, and the scythe cut and the souls were harvested, and fell in blind newts and awful bedbugs and dreadful cockroaches to scuttle, limp, creak, scrabble. My gosh, he's a bug maker, flea squasher, snake grinder outer, roach transformer, fly keeper. No, Samhain, October god, god of the dead. Samhain stomped a great foot which tread 1,000 bugs in the grass, trampled 10,000 tiny soul beasts in the dust. I think, said Tom, it's time we ran, suggested Ralph, not offhand. Shall we take a vote? The scythe hissed, Samhain boomed. Vote heck, said Montrude. All jumped up. You there, thundered the voice above them. Come back. No, sir, thanks, said one and then another, and put right foot after left. I figure, said Ralph, panting, leaping tears on his cheeks. I've been pretty good most of my life. I don't deserve to die. Ha! Shouted Samhain. The scythe came in a guillotine which chunked the head off an oak tree and felled a maple. A whole orchard of autumn apples fell into a marble pit somewhere. It sounded like a house full of boys falling downstairs. I don't think he heard you, Ralph, said Tom. They dived. They fell among rocks and shrubs. The scythe ricocheted off the stones. Samhain gave such a yell as he brought an avalanche down a small hill nearby. Boy, said Ralph, squinched up, balled up, feet against his chest, eyes tight. England is no place to be a sinner. Even as a final rain, a shower, a downpour of hysterical souls turned beetle, turned flea, turned stinkbug, turned daddy longlegs, scurried over the boys. Hey, look, that dog! A wild dog, mad with terror, raced up the rocks, and its face, its eyes, something in the eyes. That couldn't be. Pipkin? Said everyone. Pip, shouted Tom, is that where we meet you? But whoo! The scythe fell, and yipping with fright, the dog, bowled over, slid down the grass. Hold on, Pipkin. We know you. We see you. Don't scare off. Don't, Tom whistled. But the dog, yarping with Pipkin's own dear, sweet, scared voice, was gone. But didn't an echo of his yip come back from the hills? Meet me. Where? Thought Tom, criminally, where? Chapter 13. Samhain, scythe uplifted, gazed all about, happy at his games. He chuckled a most delicious chuckle, spat fiery spittle on his horny hands, clenched the scythe tighter, swung it up, and froze. For somewhere, someone was singing. Somewhere, near the top of a hill in a small clump of trees, a small bonfire flickered. Men like shadows were gathered there, lifting up their arms and chanting. Samhain listened, his scythe like a great smile in his arms. O Samhain, god of dead, hear us, we the holy Druid priests in this grove of trees, the great oaks, plead for the souls of the dead. Far away these strange men by their bright fire lifted metal knives, lifted cats and goats in their hands, chanting, We pray for the souls of those who are turned into beasts. O God of the dead, we sacrifice these beasts, so that you will be let free the souls of our loved ones who died this year. The knives flashed. Samhain smiled an even greater smile. The animals shrieked. All around the boys on the earth, the grass, the rocks, the trapped souls, lost in spiders, locked in roaches, put away in fleas and pillbugs and centipedes, gaped and yammered, silent yammers, and twitched and roiled. Tom winced. He thought he heard a million small, very microscopic bleats of pain and release from around him where the centipedes capered, spiders danced. Let free, let be, prayed the druids on the hill. The fire blazed. A sea wind roared over the meadows, brushed the rocks, touched at the spiders, rolled the pill-bugs, tumbled the roaches. The tiny spiders, insects, the miniature dogs and cows fluffled away like a million snowflakes. The tiny souls trapped in insect bodies dissolved. Released with a vast cavern whisper, they whistled up the sky. "To heaven!" cried the Druid priest. "Oh, free, go!" They flew. They vanished in the air with a great sigh of thanks and much gratitude. Samhain, god of the dead, shrugged and let them go. Then, just as suddenly, he stiffened, as did the hidden boys in Mr. Montrud crouched in the rocks. Through a valley and across the hill ran an army of Roman soldiers, a troop on the double. Their leader ran before them, shouting, "Soldiers of Rome, destroy the pagans, destroy the unholy religion. Santonius so orders. For Santonius!" Samhain in the sky raised his scythe too late. The soldiers slammed swords and axes into the bases of the holy Druid oaks. Samhain shrieked in pain as if the axes had chopped his knees. The holy tree groaned, whistled, and with a final chop, thundered to the ground. Samhain trembled in the high air. The Druid priest, fleeing, stopped and shuddered. Trees fell. The priest trapped at their ankles, the knees, fell. They were blown over like oaks in a hurricane. "No!" roared Samhain in the high air. "But yes!" cried the Romans. "Now!" The soldiers gave a final mighty blow, and Samhain, god of the dead, torn at his roots, chopped at his ankles, began to fall. The boys, staring up, leaped out of the way, for it was like a giant forest falling all in one fall. They were shadowed by his midnight descent. The thunder of his death came before him. He was the greatest tree in all existence ever, the tallest oak ever to plummet down and die. Down he came through the wild air, screaming, flailing to hold himself up. Samhain hit the earth. He dropped like a roar that shook the bones of the hills and snuffed the holy fires. And with Samhain cut and down and dead, the last of the Druid oaks fell with him, like wheat cut with a final scythe. His own huge scythe, a vast smile lost in the fields, dissolved into a puddle of silver and sank into the grass. Silence. A smoldering of fires. A blowing of leaves. Instantly the sun went down. The Druid priest bled in the grass as the boys watched, and the Roman captain prowled the dead fires, kicking the holy ashes. "Here we shall build our temples to our gods." The soldiers lit new fires and burned incense before golden idols which they set in place. But no sooner lit than a star shone in the east. On far desert sands to camel bells 3 wise men moved. The Roman soldiers lifted their bronze shields against the glare of the star in the sky, but their shields melted. The Roman idols melted and became shapes of Mary and her son. The soldiers' armor melted, dripped, changed. They were dressed now in the garments of priests who sang Latin before yet newer altars, even as Montrud crouched, squinting, weighed the scene and whispered it to his small-masked friends. "Eh, boys, see? Gods following gods. The Romans cut the Druids, their oaks, their god of the dead, bang, down, and put in their own gods, eh? Now the Christians run and cut the Romans down. New altars, boys, new incense, new names." The wind blew the altar candles out. In darkness, Tom cried out. The earth shuddered and spun. Rain drenched them. "What's happening, Mr. Montrud? Where are we?" Montrud stuck a flinty thumb into the fire and held it up. "Why, bless me, boys, it's the Dark Ages, the longest, darkest night ever. Christ long since come and gone in the world, and where's Pipkin?" "Here!" cried a voice from the black sky. I think I'm on a broom. It's taking me away." "Hey, me too," said Ralph, and then JJ, and then Hackles Nibley, and Wally Bob, and all the rest. There was a huge whisper, like a gigantic cat stroking its whiskers in the sky. "Brooms," muttered Montrud. "The gathering of the brooms, the October Broom Festival, the annual migration." To where? Asked Tom, calling up for everyone was making traffic on the air now in whisking shrieks. The broomworks, of course. Help! I'm flying, said Henry Hank. Whisk! A broom whistled him away. A great brambly cat flashed by Tom's cheek. He felt a wooden pole between his legs jump on. Hang on, said Montrud. When attacked by a broom, only one thing to do. Hold tight. I'm holding, cried Tom, and flew away. Chapter 14. The sky was swept clean with brooms. The sky was yelled clean by boys, occupying at least 8 of those brooms at once. And what, with changing their cries of fear to cries of delight, the boys almost forgot to look or listen for Pipkin. Similarly sailed off among island clouds. This way, announced Pipkin. As quick as we can, said Tom Skeleton. But Pip, it's awful hard to ride a broomstick, I find. Funny you say that, said Henry Hank. I agree. Everyone agreed, falling off, hanging on, climbing back. There was now such a hustle of brooms as left no rooms for clouds, and none for mist, and certainly none for fog or boys. There was an immense traffic jam of brooms, as if all Earth's forests gave up their branches and one broom, and fling and scoring autumn fields cut clean and throttled tight such as cereal grains, as made good sweepers, thrashers, beaters, then flew up. So here came all the backyard washline prop poles in the world. And here came with them swatches of grass, clumps of weed, brambles of bush to herd the sheep clouds and cleanse the stars and ride the boys. Said boys, each on his own skinny mount, were deluged with beatings and cuffings of flail and wood. They were punished severely for occupying heaven. They took 100 bruises each, a dozen cuts, and precisely 49 lumps on their tender skulls. Hey, I got a bloody nose, gasped Tom, happily looking at the red on his fingers. Shucks, cried Pipkin, going into a cloud dry and coming out wet. That's nothing. I got one eye shut, one ear bad, and lost a tooth. Pipkin, called Tom, don't keep telling us to meet you, and then we don't know where. Where? In the air, said Pipkin. Sheesh, muttered Henry Hank. There's 2,100,000,099,000,000 acres of air wrapped around the world. Which half acre does Pip mean? I mean, gasped Pipkin, but a whole bindle of broomsticks banged up and an acabo danced, like a shuttle of cornstalks across his flight, or a farmland fen suddenly become antic and in frenzies. A cloud with a grand fiend face gaped its mouth. It swallowed Pipkin, broom and all, then shut its vapors tight, and rumbled with Pipkin indigestion. Kick your way out, Pipkin. Stab him in the stomach, someone suggested. But nothing kicked, and the cloud, satisfied, sailed on Forever's bay toward eternity's dawn, ruminating over its delicious sweet boy dinner. Meet him in the air? Tom snorted. Good grief. Talk about horrible directions to nowhere. See even more horrible directions, said Montrud, sailing by on a broom that looked like a wet and angry cat on the end of a mop. Would you see witches, boys? Hags, crones, conjure-wives, magicians, black magics, demons, devils? There they be, in mobs and riots, boys. Skin your eyeballs. And there below, all across Europe, through France and Germany and Spain, on the night roads were indeed clusters and mobs and parades of strange sinners running north, scrambling away from the southern sea. That's it, jump, run, this way to the night, this way to the dark. Montrud swooped low, shouting over the mobs like a general leading a fine, evil troop. Quick, hide, lie low, wait a few centuries. Hide out from what? Wondered Tom. Here come the Christians, yelled voices below on the roads, and that was the answer. Tom blinked and soared and watched, and fell from all the roads the mobs ran to stand alone on farms or at crossroads, in harvest fields and towns. Old men, old women, toothless and raving, yelling to the sky as the broom swept down. Why, said Henry Hank, stunned, those are witches. Dry clean, my soul, and hang it out to dry. If you're not right, boy, agreed Montrud. There are witches jumping fires, said JJ. And witches stirring cauldrons, said Tom. And witches drawing symbols in farmyard dust, said Ralph. Are they real? I mean, I always thought. Real? Montrud, insulted, almost fell from his bramble cat broom. Ye little gods and fishes, lad, every town has its resident witch. Every town hides some old Greek pagan priest, some Roman worshipper of tiny gods who ran up the roads, hid in culverts, sank in caves to escape the Christians. In every tiny village boy and every scrubby farm, the old religious hide out. You saw the Druids cut and chopped, eh? They hide from the Romans, and now the Romans who fed Christians to lions run themselves to hide. So all the little lollygagging cults, all flavors and types, scramble to survive. See how they run, boys? And it was true. Fires burned all over Europe, at every crossroad and by every haystack. Dark forms jumbled in cats across flames. Cauldrons bubbled, old hags cursed, dogs frolicked red-hot coals. Witches, witches everywhere, said Tom, amazed. I never knew there were so many. Mobs and multitudes, Tom. Europe was flooded to the witches underfoot, under bed, in the cellars and high attics. Boy, oh boy, said Henry Hank, proud in his witch costume. Real witches! Could they talk to the dead? No, said Montrud. Jump up devils? No. Demons in their door hinges and squeal them out at midnight? No. Ride broomsticks? Nope. Put sneezing spells on people? Sorry. Kill folks by sticking pins in dolls? No. Well, heck, what could they do? Nothing. Nothing? Cried all the boys, affronted. Oh, they thought they could, boys. Montrud led the team down on their brooms over the farms, where witches dropped frogs in cauldrons and stomped toads, and snuffed mummy dust, and cavorted in cackles. But stop and think, what does the word witch truly mean? Why, said Tom, and was unsure. Wits, said Montrud, intelligence. That's all it means, knowledge. So any man or woman with half a brain and with inclinations toward learning had his wits about him, eh? And so anyone too smart who didn't watch out was called a witch, said everyone. And some of the smart ones, the ones with wits, pretended at magic or dreamed themselves with ghosts and dead shufflers and ambling mummies. And if enemies dropped dead by coincidence, they took credit for it. They liked to believe they had power, but they had none, boys, none. Sad and sorry, 'tis true. But listen, there beyond the hill, that's where the brooms come from. That's where they go. The boys listened and heard. The broomworks makes the broom that looms on sky and gloom and rising off the moon. The broom which, groom to which, flies high on harvestings of storm wind grass, with shriek and sigh to motion it in ocean seas of cloud, now soft, now loud. Below, at full tilt, a witch broom factory was filled with commotions, poles being cut and bound with broom brushes, which, no sooner tied, took off up chimneys and flights of spark. On rooftops, hags leaped on to ride the stars, or so it seemed, as the boys watched and voices sang. Did witches feel the night wind in their bed, and reel and dance with devils and the dead? No, but that is what they bragged and claimed and said, until whole continents hell-bent named witches of the innocent and did conspire to burn old women, babes, and virgins in a fire. Mobs raved through villages and farms with torches, cursing. Bonfires flared from the English Channel to the Mediterranean shore. Through all of Germany and France, 10,000 so-called evil witches hung to kick their final antic dance. No village but what shared a dread uproar, as each side named the other for a devil's pig. Old Satan's sow the demons maddened bore. Wild pigs with witches glued to their backs trotted roof tiles, flinting sparks, snorting steams. All Europe was a cloud of witches' smoke, their judges often bound and burnt with them. For what? A joke? Until all men are spoiled with guilt, all sin, all lie. So what to do? Why, everyone must die. Smoke churned the sky. At every crossroads witches hung, crows gathered in feathered darkness. The boys hung from their brooms in the sky, eyes popped and mouths wide. "Anyone want to be a witch?" asked Monshrood at last. Said Henry Hank, shivering in his witch's rags. Not me." "No fun, eh, boy?" "No fun." The brooms flew them off through chars and smokes. They landed on an empty street in an open place in Paris. Their brooms fell over, dead. Alright, that's everything for chapters 12, 13, and 14. I hope you enjoyed today's chapters, and I'll see you next time. Bye!